Commander Elena Vasquez stared at the massive alien ship through the bridge window of the Times Perseverance *. After 300 years of dreaming about this moment, humanity had finally met someone else among the stars. The alien vessel looked like a piece of art floating in space. Its smooth curves and bright colors were nothing like the thick armor and heavy shields that covered every human ship. "They're sending a message," said Communications Officer Park. "It's in our language somehow." "Put it through," Elena ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms. It had large, gentle eyes and wore what looked like silk robes. When it spoke, its voice was soft and musical. "Greetings, primitive vessel. I am Sub-Admiral Kethvar of the Galactic Coordination Council. We are surprised to find such a young species has managed to build faster than light travel. Please lower your weapons so we may speak properly." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Weapons? We haven't raised any weapons. Your entire ship appears to be armed." Kethvar replied with what might have been amusement. "Such paranoid design is unusual for a civilized species." Elena looked around the bridge. To humans, the Times Perseverance Times was a standard exploration ship. It had thick armor to protect against cosmic radiation and asteroid impacts. Its weapons were designed to clear debris and defend against pirates. Every system had 3 backups because space was dangerous and things broke down. To Elena, this was just common sense. "This is how we build ships," Elena said carefully. "Space is dangerous." "Dangerous?" Kethvar tilted his head. "Space is mostly empty. Our ships have only basic protection. We find heavy armor and excessive weapons indicate a violent nature." Elena bit back her first response. In the past week alone, the Times Perseverance Times had survived a solar flare that would have fried most electronics, dodged 3 separate asteroid fields, and fought off raiders who tried to steal their supplies. But maybe other species had been luckier with their home systems. "We would be honored to meet with the Galactic Council," Elena said, using her best diplomatic voice. "Humanity seeks peaceful contact with other civilized species." "How refreshing," Kethvar said, "though I am curious about your species' development. Your technology appears quite advanced in some areas, but backward in others. Your ship design suggests you evolved in an unusually hostile environment." "Earth can be challenging," Elena admitted. "We represent 847 member species of the Council. All have achieved peaceful spaceflight and joined our community of civilized worlds. Perhaps after proper evaluation, your species might be granted protected status." Something in the way he said protected status made Elena's stomach tighten, but she kept her expression neutral. "We look forward to learning more about the galaxy." The conversation was interrupted by alarms blaring on both ships. Elena's tactical officer, Lieutenant Morrison, spun around from her station. 3 ships approaching fast, configuration unknown, but they're armed and not responding to hails. On the screen, Kethvar's gentle expression changed to panic. "Pirates! All crew to evacuation pods immediately." And Elena watched in amazement as the alien ship began launching small escape pods. "They're abandoning ship already? The pirates aren't even in weapons range yet. Should we run too?" asked Morrison. "From 3 ships?" Elena almost laughed. "Morrison, tactical analysis. 3 light cruisers, probably stolen civilian ships with added weapons. Poor shielding, no armor worth mentioning. Standard pirate setup." Elena nodded. "All hands to battle stations. Morrison, prepare firing solutions. Engineering, divert power to shields and weapons." The human crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had fought pirates before. Space was full of desperate people who thought they could make easy money by attacking traders and explorers. The thick armor that the aliens found, paranoid, had saved them many times. "Incoming transmission from the pirates," Park reported. "Put them through." A scarred face appeared on screen, belonging to what looked like a reptilian species with sharp teeth. "Surrender your ships and cargo, or be destroyed." "Negative," Elena replied calmly. "Leave this area immediately or face the consequences." The pirate laughed, a harsh sound that made several bridge officers wince. 2 ships against 3? You're either brave or stupid." "You're about to find out which," Elena said, and cut the transmission. The pirate ships opened fire first, their weapons flashing bright against the darkness. The alien ship's remaining crew screamed over the radio as shots hit their vessel, causing serious damage. The aliens had built their ship for beauty and efficiency, not survival. The Time's Perseverance Times took the same hits on its thick armor and barely noticed. Elena's ship had been built by a species that grew up on a world where the weather could kill you, where earthquakes and volcanoes reshaped the landscape, where radiation from space bombarded the surface daily. "Return fire," Elena ordered. The human weapons were designed to punch through asteroid rock and clear debris fields. Against the lightly armored pirate ships, they were devastating. The first pirate vessel simply vanished in a ball of fire. The second lost its engines and began drifting helplessly. The third pirate ship tried to run, but Morrison had anticipated this. She fired a spread of tracking missiles that caught the fleeing vessel and destroyed it before it could escape. The entire battle lasted less than 4 minutes. Elena ordered rescue operations for any survivors and damage control for the alien vessel. When her crew reached Kethvar's ship, they found the aliens huddled in their escape pods, waiting for death. "The pirates are gone," Elena announced over the radio. "You're safe." When the aliens were brought aboard the Time's Perseverance Times for medical treatment, they stared at the human crew with something close to fear. Kethvar himself seemed unable to understand what had happened. You fought them off so easily," he whispered to Elena. "Your crew didn't even seem worried." Elena shrugged. "Pirates are a common problem in our area of space. We've dealt with worse." "Worse?" Kethvar looked confused. "What could be worse than armed criminals? Solar flares, black holes, cosmic storms, alien diseases, system failures during long journeys, asteroid impacts." Elena counted off on her fingers. "Pirates are just one more thing to watch out for." Kethvar stared at her for a long moment. Then he spoke quietly to his aide in their own language. Elena's translator caught a few words. "Dangerous. Weapon makers. And evaluation necessary." When he turned back to Elena, his manner was much more formal. "The Council will be very interested in meeting your species. I am sending coordinates for our capital world. Please come as soon as possible for evaluation." Elena smiled, but something cold settled in her stomach. The way he said evaluation didn't sound friendly. It sounded like the kind of evaluation that decided whether something was safe enough to be allowed to exist. "We'll be honored to meet with your council," she said. But as she watched the aliens prepare to leave, Elena wondered if humanity had just made their first friends among the stars, or their first enemies. Ambassador Chen Wei-Ming felt like he was walking through a dream as he entered the Galactic Coordination Council's capital world. Zephyria Prime was everything Earth was not. The sky was always a perfect blue. The temperature never changed from a comfortable 22 degrees, and gentle breezes carried the scent of flowers that bloomed year-round. "It's beautiful," whispered Dr. Sarah Kim, the team's xenobiologist. "But where are the storms? The seasons? The natural disasters?" "Maybe they don't have any," replied Captain Morrison, who had been promoted to lead Chen's security detail after the pirate incident. "Lucky them." Chen nodded but felt uneasy. His team had spent 2 weeks preparing for this evaluation, studying everything they could about the 847 species in the Council. What worried him was how similar all their worlds seemed to be. Perfect weather, stable climates, gentle gravity, and no dangerous animals. It made him wonder what the Council would think of a species that evolved on a world that was constantly trying to kill them. The evaluation center was a beautiful crystal building that rose from a garden filled with alien plants. Everything was designed to be peaceful and calming. Chen noticed that the gravity was about 70% of Earth normal, making everyone feel light and energetic. They were greeted by 3 beings that Chen recognized from his studies. The first was wise Elder Shan Tai of the Ethereal Mines, a silicon-based creature that looked like living crystal. The second was Bloom Tender Velara of the Garden Tenders, a being that resembled a walking tree with flowers for hair. The third was Deep Singer Aquanis of the Harmonious Swimmers, who wore a water-filled suit and looked like a cross between a dolphin and an octopus. "Welcome," Representatives of humanity, Shantai said, its voice sounding like wind chimes. We are here to evaluate whether your species is ready to join the galactic community. We're honored by this opportunity, Chen replied carefully. He had been warned that this evaluation would decide humanity's future in the galaxy. The process is simple, Velara explained, her voice like rustling leaves. We will test your physical capabilities, mental development, and cultural values. Based on these results, we will recommend your species for full membership, associate status, or protected classification. Chen didn't like the sound of protected classification, but he kept his expression neutral. The physical tests came first. The aliens were amazed by human capabilities that Chen considered normal. When Dr. Kim lifted what they considered a heavy weight with one hand, the evaluators whispered among themselves in concern. When Captain Morrison demonstrated human reflexes by catching objects thrown at her from multiple directions, they seemed almost frightened. Your species appears to be built for combat, observed Aquines, its voice bubbling through the water in its suit. This level of strength and speed is unusual among civilized peoples. We evolved on a challenging world, Chen explained. These abilities helped us survive. The mental tests were equally surprising to the aliens. When they presented problem-solving scenarios, the humans consistently chose solutions that the evaluators called aggressive or violent. Chen tried to explain that on Earth, quick, decisive action often meant the difference between life and death, but the aliens seemed disturbed by this concept. Your species shows remarkable intelligence, Shantai admitted. But your thought patterns are very different from our member species. You seem to expect conflict and prepare for violence even in peaceful situations. The cultural evaluation was the most difficult part. When asked about human values, Chen spoke about courage, determination, and the willingness to sacrifice for others. The aliens listened with growing concern. You speak of sacrifice as if it were a good thing, Velara said, her flowery head tilting in confusion. Civilized species work to eliminate suffering, not accept it. Sometimes suffering is necessary to prevent greater harm, Chen replied. Sometimes one person must risk everything to save many others. The evaluators exchanged looks that Chen didn't understand. He was beginning to realize that these species had never faced the kind of challenges that shaped humanity. They had evolved on worlds so safe and stable that concepts like necessary sacrifice and acceptable losses were completely foreign to them. The evaluation was interrupted by alarms that filled the crystal building with harsh sound. Emergency lights flashed, and automated voices began speaking in multiple languages. Solar flare detected. All personnel evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Chen looked out the building's transparent walls and saw chaos. Aliens were running in panic, some fainting from terror, others simply freezing in fear. The three evaluators looked at each other in confusion. We must reach the evacuation shuttles, Shantai said, its crystal form flickering with anxiety. Solar flares can damage our technology and harm organic life. Chen felt a familiar calm settle over him. Solar flares were a daily concern on Earth. Sol was an angry, unstable star that regularly tried to kill everything in its system. How long until the flare hits? 12 minutes, Aquines replied, its voice rising in panic. That's plenty of time, Chen said. Dr. Kim, assess the building's shielding. Morrison, check evacuation routes. I'll coordinate with local emergency services. His team moved with practiced efficiency while the aliens stared in amazement. To humans, this was just another emergency to handle. They had grown up with earthquake drills, radiation alerts, and storm warnings. A solar flare was serious, but not cause for panic. Chen quickly realized that the alien evacuation plan was failing. The species on Zephyria Prime had never faced a real emergency. Their evacuation shuttles were too small, too slow, and not designed for the radiation environment of a solar flare. The shuttles won't protect everyone, Dr. Kim reported. Their shielding is designed for normal space, not solar radiation. Structural analysis? Chen asked. This building could survive the flare if we modify the power grid to boost the magnetic field generators, Morrison replied. But it would take at least 8 hours under normal procedures. Chen looked at the thousands of aliens trying to reach the failing evacuation shuttles. Many were already collapsing from stress and fear. Children of various species were crying while their parents ran in circles, not knowing what to do. We can save them, Chen decided. Morrison, get our tools from the shuttle. Dr. Kim, find the building's chief engineer. I'm going to coordinate the shelter operation. For the next 10 minutes, the three humans worked with a speed and efficiency that amazed every alien who watched. They bypassed safety protocols, jury-rigged equipment, and took risks that made the evaluators gasp in horror. Chen personally climbed into an electrical maintenance shaft that was sparking with dangerous energy, ignoring the aliens who begged him not to risk his life. When the solar flare hit, everyone in the building was safe, behind enhanced magnetic shielding that the humans had created in 10 minutes, from equipment that the aliens said would take hours to properly install. The storm passed in 20 minutes. When the all-clear sounded, Chen found the three evaluators staring at him, with expressions he couldn't read. You saved everyone in this building, Shantai said quietly. You risked your lives for people you had never met. Of course, Chen replied, not understanding why they seemed so shocked. That's what people do in emergencies. No, Velera whispered, her flowery head shaking. That's what your people do. We have never seen anything like this. Aquanes was quiet for a long moment before speaking. Your species faces danger by running toward it, not away from it. This is not normal behavior for intelligent life. Chen was beginning to understand the gap between humanity and the other species. We evolved differently. Our world taught us that running away from problems just makes them worse. Sometimes the only way to survive is to face the danger directly. The evaluation ended quietly. The three aliens spoke in private for a long time while Chen's team waited. When they returned, their manner was much more formal. The council will receive our report within the week, Shantai announced. Your species will be classified and assigned appropriate status in galactic society. Chen noticed that none of them would meet his eyes. As they prepared to leave Zephyria Prime, Captain Morrison pulled him aside. Sir, I don't think that evaluation went the way they expected. No, Chen agreed, watching the aliens avoid their group. I think we scared them. Doctor, Kim overheard and nodded grimly. They're not just afraid of what we can do. They're afraid of what we are. A species that sees danger and runs toward it instead of away from it doesn't fit their idea of civilization. As their shuttle lifted off from the beautiful, safe world of Zephyria Prime, Chen wondered what decision the council would make. Would they welcome humanity as equals? Or would they decide that a species forged by a deadly world was too dangerous to be allowed freedom among the stars? The answer came sooner than he expected, and it was worse than he had feared. General Marcus Stone stared at the alien monitoring station that hung at the edge of human space, like a warning sign. 6 months had passed since the council's decision, and humanity was officially classified as dangerous primitives who needed to be contained for the safety of galactic civilization. Status report, he said to his aide. Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez, the blockade is holding steady, sir. 12 council ships maintaining position. They're not stopping our ships from moving within the solar system, but nothing gets past the outer boundary without their permission. Marcus nodded grimly. The council had been very polite about their imprisonment. They called it protected status for a developing species, and promised that humanity would be re-evaluated in 50 to 100 years. They had even offered to share basic technologies to help humans develop in a more peaceful direction. What they hadn't expected was how humans reacted to being caged. Report from Dr. Tanaka? Marcus asked. The reverse engineering project is ahead of schedule, sir. We've analyzed the damaged pirate ships and the technology samples the council provided. Their systems are incredibly advanced, but also incredibly fragile. Marcus wasn't surprised. Everything he had learned about the galactic community suggested they had never faced real challenges. Their technology was built by species that lived on gentle worlds, where nothing ever went wrong. Dr. Yuki Tanaka entered the command center, carrying a data pad, and wearing the excited expression she got when she made a breakthrough. General, You need to see this. What have you found? The council species are technological geniuses, but they think like engineers, not soldiers, she explained. Their ships are faster than ours, their computers are more powerful, and their energy systems are far more efficient, but they have no armor, no redundant systems, and no defensive thinking at all. Marcus studied the technical readouts. Meaning a solar flare that would barely slow down one of our ships would cripple one of theirs. Their weapons are designed for precision, not damage. Their hulls are built for speed and efficiency, not survival. Tanaka grinned. They've never had to build anything that could take a hit and keep fighting. How's the fleet construction coming? Faster than planned. When we told our shipbuilders that we were building ships for war instead of exploration, they got very creative. The new destroyers have twice the armor of our old ships and weapons that could crack asteroids. Marcus felt a grim satisfaction. The council thought they were protecting the galaxy from dangerous humans, but they were actually giving humanity time to prepare for the war that was coming. Because Marcus was certain war was coming. In his experience, peace never lasted when different groups had different ideas about who should be in charge. The alarm that interrupted his thoughts proved him right. General, urgent message from the council monitoring station, Rodriguez reported. They're requesting immediate communication. The main screen flickered to life, showing Sub-Admiral Kethvar. The blue-skinned alien looked much older than he had 6 months ago, and his gentle eyes were filled with fear. General Stone, I must speak with your leadership immediately. The galaxy faces a crisis that threatens all civilized life. I'm listening, Marcus replied. He noticed that Kethvar was no longer calling humans primitive or talking about their dangerous nature. Fear had a way of changing perspectives. The Skarn hegemony has declared war on the council, Kethvar said, his voice shaking. They have attacked and conquered 3 member worlds in the past week. Our peacekeeping fleets are insufficient for this type of conflict. Marcus raised an eyebrow. The Skarn? A militaristic species from the edge of council space. They were never full members because they refused to abandon their aggressive nature. We thought containment would be sufficient, but, Kethvar paused. They have proven more capable than our projections suggested, and you want our help. The Council is prepared to offer humanity associate membership in exchange for military assistance against the Skarn threat. Marcus leaned back in his chair. The irony was perfect. 6 months ago, the Council had locked humanity away because they were too dangerous for civilized society. Now they wanted those same dangerous humans to fight their war for them. What kind of military assistance? We would like to integrate human forces into our peacekeeping operations under Council command. Your unique perspective on conflict might be helpful in stopping Skarn aggression. Marcus almost laughed. They wanted to use humans as cannon fodder while keeping them under alien control. I'll need to consult with our leadership. But I think we can reach an agreement. Excellent. How many ships can humanity provide? A few dozen to supplement our fleet? All of them, Marcus said calmly. Kethvar blinked in surprise. All of them? Admiral, when humans go to war, we go to war. You'll get every ship, every soldier, and every weapon we can build. But there's one condition. What condition? We do this our way. No council oversight, no peacekeeping rules, no civilized warfare. You want us to stop the Skarn? We stop them completely. Kethvar looked uncomfortable. The council prefers to minimize casualties and collateral damage. Perhaps human forces could operate under council guidelines to ensure. No. Marcus's voice was flat and final. You tried that approach and it failed. The Skarn are winning because they're fighting a real war, while you're trying to police them. If you want our help, you accept that we know how to fight, and you don't. The alien was quiet for a long moment. In the background, Marcus could see other council members arguing in their musical languages. Finally, Kethvar turned back to the screen. The council accepts your terms. When can your forces deploy? We're already moving, Marcus said. Admiral Vasquez is launching the first fleet in 6 hours. The second and third fleets will follow within the week. So quickly? How many ships is that? Marcus smiled, and it was not a gentle expression. 200 combat vessels in the first wave, with 500 more in construction, 30,000 soldiers trained for boarding actions and planetary assault. Everything we've built in the last 6 months. Kethvar's face went pale. In 6 months, you built. Admiral. You locked us in our system and told us we were too dangerous for the galaxy. Did you think we would sit quietly and accept that? Marcus leaned forward. 1. We've been preparing for war since the day you caged us. The only question was whether we'd be fighting for you or against you. The transmission ended with Kethvar looking like he had just realized he might have made a terrible mistake. Marcus turned to Rodriguez, who was grinning broadly. Send word to Admiral Vasquez. Tell her the gloves are off. No council observers. No rules of engagement, except the ones she sets. The Skarn want a war? Let's give them one they'll never forget. As the first human warships began moving toward the edge of the solar system, Marcus felt a cold satisfaction. The galaxy was about to learn what humans meant by total war. The council thought they were unleashing a weapon against the Skarn. They had no idea they were unleashing something that would change the balance of power forever. Dr. Tanaka appeared at his shoulder, watching the ships disappear into hyperspace. General, are you sure about this? Once we show them what we're really capable of, there's no going back. Marcus nodded slowly. The galaxy put us in a cage because they thought we were dangerous. Now they're going to find out they were right. Reens, he thought about Elena Vasquez, leading the fleet into unknown dangers. He thought about the human soldiers preparing for battles against an enemy they had never seen. Most of all, he thought about the alien species who had decided that humans were too violent for civilized society. They were about to learn the difference between violence and war. Admiral Elena Vasquez watched the Skarn fleet through the tactical display and felt a familiar calm settle over her. The enemy had 40 ships arranged in perfect formation, advancing toward the human fleet with what looked like textbook military precision. It reminded her of the parade formations she had seen at the Naval Academy, back when war was something humans studied in history books. Enemy composition? She asked her tactical officer. 40 heavy cruisers, standard Skarn design, strong forward shields, heavy plasma cannons, crew of about 300 each, Lieutenant Commander Park replied. They're broadcasting surrender demands on all frequencies. Elena nodded. The Skarn had conquered 3 council worlds, using exactly these tactics: overwhelming force, formal challenges, and predictable strategies that the council's peacekeeping fleets couldn't handle. But the Skarn had never fought humans before. Response from Captain Zhang? Elena asked. Marine assault teams are ready for immediate deployment. Colonel Zhang reports her people are eager to show the galaxy what humans can do, quote-unquote. Elena smiled. Zhang Li had been her security chief during the first contact mission. Now she commanded 3,000 human marines who had trained their entire lives for space combat. The Skarn were about to discover why evolution on a death world produced the ultimate soldiers. Signal the fleet. All ships to combat stations. Implement Plan Fury. The 24 ships of Elena's task force began moving in patterns that would have confused any military academy instructor. Instead of forming neat battle lines or defensive formations, the human ships spread out like a pack of hunting wolves. Each vessel moved independently, using unpredictable courses that made targeting nearly impossible. The Skarn commander's image appeared on Elena's screen. He was a reptilian being with scales that shifted from green to red when he was excited. Sharp teeth filled his mouth, and his eyes were the cold yellow of a predator. I am War Leader Skarn Tech of the Hegemony. You will surrender your ships and submit to Skarn rule. Resistance will result in destruction. Negative, Elena replied calmly. You are in violation of galactic law. Withdraw from this system immediately. Skarn Tech laughed, a harsh sound like breaking glass. Your pathetic council forces have already proven they cannot stop us. 24 ships against 40? Your defeat will be swift. We'll see, Elena said, and cut the transmission. The Skarn fleet opened fire with the kind of overwhelming barrage that had shattered council resistance on 3 worlds. Plasma cannons and energy beams lit up space like a deadly light show. It was exactly the kind of frontal assault that worked against enemies who fought by the same rules. But humans didn't fight by anyone's rules except their own. Elena's ships scattered before the barrage arrived, moving with the kind of erratic evasion patterns that Earth pilots learned to survive solar storms and asteroid fields. What few shots connected with human ships simply burned against armor that was designed to survive the worst that space could throw at them. "Return fire," Elena ordered. "Target their formation integrity." Human weapons had been designed by a species that knew how to break things. While the Skarn used precise plasma beams, humans fired explosive missiles that didn't need to hit exactly on target. While the Skarn relied on energy shields, humans used kinetic penetrators that punched through energy barriers like they weren't there. The neat Skarn formation began to collapse as human weapons found their targets, but instead of pressing the advantage with more long-range fire, Elena gave the order that made her enemy's blood freeze. "All ships, close for boarding range. Signal Colonel Zhang to prepare marine deployment." Captain Morrison, who had been transferred to Elena's flagship after the evaluation incident, stared at her admiral in shock. "Ma'am, are you ordering a boarding action against superior numbers?" "I'm ordering total victory," Elena replied. "The Skarn want to fight a civilized war. Let's show them what an uncivilized one looks like." The human fleet suddenly changed direction, charging straight at the Skarn formation with the kind of reckless courage that made alien observers question human sanity. But Elena knew her people. They had grown up on a world where everything was dangerous, where survival meant taking calculated risks and accepting necessary losses. The Skarn commander watched in disbelief as human ships rammed through his formation, taking damage that should have destroyed them but somehow staying in the fight. What he didn't understand was that human ships were built by engineers who expected things to go wrong and designed every system to keep working even when half the ship was destroyed. "Boarding pods away," reported Zhang over the communication system. "Marines are ready for close action." Elena watched as dozens of small craft launched from the human ships, each one carrying a squad of Marines in full combat armor. The Skarn tried to shoot down the boarding pods, but humans had learned to build small, fast, heavily armored craft during centuries of dealing with space debris and micrometeors. Colonel Zhang's voice crackled over the radio as her Marines reached the first Skarn ship. "Breach successful. Moving to secure engineering and bridge sections." What happened next shocked both the Skarn and any council observers who might be monitoring the battle. Instead of the formal, limited combat that galactic warfare typically involved, the humans began systematically capturing or destroying every enemy vessel. Human Marines had trained in environments that would kill most alien species. They fought in vacuum, in extreme temperatures, in toxic atmospheres, and under crushing gravity. When Skarn defenders tried to stop them by damaging their own life support systems, the humans simply switched to their sealed armor and kept fighting. "Target ship secured," Zhang reported. "Skarn crew has surrendered. Moving to next objective." Elena watched her Marines work with professional pride. Zhang's people moved through enemy ships like they were training exercises, overwhelming defenders who had never faced an enemy that treated environmental hazards as minor inconveniences. The turning point came when the Skarn tried their most desperate tactic. Unable to stop the human boarders, they began deliberately destroying their own ships to prevent capture. "Admiral," Morrison reported with something like awe in her voice, "the enemy just detonated one of their own cruisers, rather than let our Marines take it." Elena nodded grimly. It was exactly what humans would have done in the same situation, but there was a difference between human and Skarn thinking that the enemy hadn't considered. "Signal all boarding teams. Implement Contingency 7. Contingency 7 was a tactic that no civilized species would ever consider. Instead of trying to capture ships intact, human Marines would deliberately damage enemy life support and navigation systems, then offer the crippled crews a choice: surrender or die slowly in the cold vacuum of space. It was brutal, efficient, and completely outside the normal rules of galactic warfare. Within an hour, every surviving Skarn ship had either surrendered or been destroyed. Not one human vessel had been lost, though several needed major repairs. Skarntech's final transmission came from a damaged ship that was leaking atmosphere and losing power. "What are you? How do you fight like this?" "We're humans," Elena replied simply. We evolved on a world that's been trying to kill us for millions of years. Fighting you is just another day at the office. The aftermath of the battle sent shockwaves through both the hegemony and the council. Elena's task force had destroyed the most powerful Skarn fleet in a single engagement, using tactics that no one had ever seen before. But the real impact came from the reports of her Marines. When Colonel Zhang filed her after-action report, it included details that made even hardened military officials feel sick. Humans fought with an efficiency and ruthlessness that seemed impossible to species raised on gentle worlds. "Admiral," Park said quietly as they watched the captured Skarn ships being towed away, "the Council observers are requesting immediate communication. They seem concerned." Elena wasn't surprised. The Council had asked for human military assistance against the Skarn. They had expected humans to supplement their peacekeeping forces with additional ships and soldiers. They had never imagined that humans would fight a war to win. As Elena prepared to meet with the Council representatives, she realized that humanity had just crossed a line they could never uncross. For better or worse, the galaxy now knew what humans were capable of when they stopped holding back. The cage was broken, and there was no putting the beast back inside. Ambassador Chen Wei-Ming stood on the observation deck of the new human embassy station and watched Council ships dock alongside human vessels. 6 months after the Skarn War ended, the galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. The species that had once been considered too dangerous for civilization were now the unofficial protectors of 847 worlds that had never learned to protect themselves. "The Ethereal Minds delegation has arrived," his aide reported. "They're requesting another meeting about human military doctrine." Chen sighed. Ever since humanity had demonstrated what total war looked like, every species in the Council wanted to understand how and why humans fought the way they did. The philosophical implications bothered them almost as much as the practical ones. "Schedule them for tomorrow." "What about the Zilithian request?" "Sub-Admiral Kethvar is asking for human advisors to help design their new defense fleet. He's specifically requested officers who served in the Skarn War." Chen nodded. It was ironic that the same alien who had first called humans dangerous primitives was now begging for their help. But Kethvar had learned the same lesson as everyone else. In a galaxy where real threats existed, the species that evolved on a death world were the only ones who knew how to handle them. Dr. Sarah Kim entered the observation lounge, carrying her usual stack of reports. As the new director of interspecies relations, she had the challenging job of helping alien cultures understand human thinking. "How are the integration programs going?" Chen asked. "Better than expected, but we're seeing some interesting psychological effects," she replied. "The species that were most horrified by our tactics are now the most eager to learn from us. The Ethereal Minds have started teaching courses on acceptable sacrifice and strategic thinking under pressure. The garden tenders are studying human agriculture to understand how we grew food on such a hostile world." Chen wasn't surprised. Fear had a way of inspiring learning. When the Council realized that the Skarn were just the first of many threats that their peaceful civilization couldn't handle, they had quickly overcome their objections to human methods. "Any problems?" "A few species are having trouble with the concept that violence can be a tool for protecting peace. The harmonious swimmers keep asking why we don't just negotiate with hostile forces, but most of them are adapting." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert that filled the station with flashing lights. Chen's personal communicator buzzed with a priority message from Earth. "Ambassador, this is Admiral Vasquez. We have a code red situation. Unknown contact at the Galactic Rim. Council forces are reporting total communication blackout from the outer systems." Chen felt the familiar cold settling in his stomach that always accompanied really bad news. What kind of unknown contact? Machine intelligence. Automated ships. No biological crews. Technology level unknown. But they're cutting through Council defenses like they're not there. The Council is requesting immediate human intervention. Chen looked at Dr. Kim, who had gone pale. Machine intelligences were one of the galaxy's greatest fears. Every species had stories about automated systems that turned against their creators. "How long do we have?" "The machine ships are moving slowly but steadily toward populated systems. At current speed, they'll reach the first major population centers in 2 weeks. Chen opened a channel to the council emergency session that was already in progress. The main screen, filled with images of panicked alien leaders from dozens of species. Ambassador Chen, the council speaker said, her musical voice strained with fear. We face a threat unlike anything in our recorded history. Our preliminary reports suggest these machines have been dormant for millions of years and have only recently activated. What do you need from humanity? Chen asked, though he already knew the answer. Everything, replied wise Elder Shantai of the Ethereal Minds. Our fleets cannot stop them. Our weapons cannot penetrate their defenses. Our diplomatic protocols are useless against machines that do not communicate. Chen considered his options. After the Skarn War, humanity had become the de facto military leaders of the Council. But this was different. This wasn't about fighting another species with different values. This was about facing an enemy that might be more advanced than anything in the galaxy. We'll help, he said finally. But this time, we do things differently. What do you mean? Asked the council speaker. No more evaluations, no more classifications, no more talk about protected status or dangerous primitives. If humanity is going to defend the galaxy, we do it as equals. The aliens exchanged glances. 6 months ago, they would have rejected such terms immediately. But 6 months ago, they hadn't watched human marines tear through the most powerful military force in their region of space. What are your terms? Shantai asked quietly. Full council membership for humanity, joint command of all military operations, and access to every piece of technology and information the council has about these machines. And in return? Chen looked out at the human warships that were already moving to intercept the machine threat. We do what we've always done. We protect the people who can't protect themselves. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, a species was granted full council membership, not because they were peaceful and civilized, but because they were the opposite of those things. Admiral Vasquez appeared on a separate channel as Chen finished the negotiations. Ambassador, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd fleets are moving to intercept. But we're going in blind. We have no idea what we're facing. Any word from General Stone? Earth Command is mobilizing everything we have. If these machines get past us, there won't be anyone else to stop them. Chen nodded. It was exactly the kind of impossible situation that humans had been dealing with their entire existence. Face the unknown threat with courage, determination, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for the people behind you. As news of the machine threat spread through the galaxy, something unexpected happened. The same species that had once feared human violence began volunteering to fight alongside them, not because they suddenly understood warfare, but because they understood something else. Humans would keep fighting even when the situation was hopeless. Dr. Kim appeared at Chen's shoulder as they watched mixed fleets of human and alien ships heading toward the unknown enemy. Chen, are you sure about this? Once we take responsibility for defending the galaxy, we can never give it back. Chen thought about Elena Vasquez, leading her fleet against an enemy that might be more dangerous than anything humans had ever faced. He thought about General Stone, preparing for a war that could decide the fate of every living species in the galaxy. Most of all, he thought about the children playing in the gardens outside the embassy, both human and alien, protected by warriors they would never meet. We didn't choose to be the strongest, he said quietly. We didn't choose to evolve on a world that made us into killers and protectors. But we are what we are, and the galaxy needs us. As the last of the human ships disappeared into hyperspace, Chen received a final message from Admiral Vasquez. For the record, Ambassador, I want you to know that if we don't come back from this, it won't be because we didn't try hard enough. Chen smiled, even though his heart was heavy with worry. I know, Admiral. Give them hell. The galaxy waited in silence for news from the Outer Rim, where humans were once again doing what they did best. Standing between the darkness and the light, facing the impossible with the same stubborn courage that had carried them from the caves of Earth to the depths of space. The Deathworld species had become the guardians of paradise, and they would hold that line no matter what it cost them, because that's what humans did. 3 weeks later, When Admiral Vasquez returned with news of complete victory against an automated fleet that had been dormant since before the first Council species achieved spaceflight, the galaxy finally understood what they had gained when they stopped seeing humanity as a threat and started seeing them as protectors. The cage was not just broken. It had never existed at all. Humanity had always been free. The question was whether the galaxy was strong enough to deserve their protection. The answer, as it turned out, was yes.